UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Rodriguez. Every fight to make next for the winners and the losers of this UFC Fight Night. Of course, I think we got like 4 guys that I think should be cut. One girl that I think retired as well in Julia Avila. So we're going to be talking about all of that and more in today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, for the loser of the main event, we got Gregory Rodriguez versus Mansour Abdul Malik, who's about to be 8-0 with all finishes in MMA. He's going to be 2-0 in the UFC over this week, and he's fighting Nick Klein on the prelims. I think he wins that matchup, and I think you do. Gregory Rodriguez, Mansour Abdul Malik, co-main event of one of the smaller UFC fight nights. If Mansour is able to get the win there, I think we push him inside to a top 20 guy again. Give him another guy around that top 20, like a Petrosky, like a Rodolfo Vieira type of guy. In the middleweight division, beats Gregory, wins one more. He'll be 4-0. Get him inside of that top 15. That's what I like to see at 185 pounds. Also, Jared Cannonier, the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. 2 losses in a row, Caio Borralho by decision, Nasruddin Imavov by knockout, and then you beat Gregory Rodriguez. I applaud you for doing so, but you've lost to basically everyone ranked above you. You beat the guy right below you, Marvin Vettori. Let's wait for things to kind of settle down in that top 5 before we give you another shot on the top 5, because you literally just lost to Caio and Imavov. We're not going to get you right back up there off one win over Gregory Rodriguez. So let's keep you in that gatekeeper kind of role, and let's main event another UFC fight now, this time versus a ranked guy in Roman Kopylov, number 13 ranked middleweight, versus Jared Cannonier, a much closer fight than Gregory versus Jared Cannonier, as Roman has great cardio and better striking than Gregory Rodriguez. Just knocked out Chris Curtis. Has only really lost to Anthony Fluffy Hernandez and wrestlers and grapplers in the middleweight division. I think this is a really, really tough fight for both guys. This is a real test for Roman Kopylov and a big, big fight in the middleweight division. If Roman wins, pushes him up inside of the top 10, and it proves just how good Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is, because you'd have to move Anthony with Roman. So if Roman beats Jared and Fluffy beats Brendan Allen, you got to move Fluffy even higher for have beaten Roman Kopylov. So it helps Fluffy as well in the middleweight division. So again, I don't think Jared should fight up just for winning one fight. Then we got Youssef Zalal. I think he should fight against Aljamain Sterling. He beat number 10, but it wasn't an amazing win. I don't think he should fight down on the rankings, of course. So he should fight up, but not a crazy amount up, because again, the fight was not good. It was not an exciting fight. Sterling is coming off a loss, so he's got to fight down in the UFC featherweight ranking. So you do Sterling, Youssef Zalal, pay-per-view. I mean, I'd be fine with it being on the prelims of like a stacked, International Fight Week pay-per-view. I'd be fine with this being on the prelims for sure. I know a lot of people get mad with this being on the main card, so that's why I'm saying prelims, but I'd be fine with it being a second fight of the main card as well on a pay-per-view, a co-main event of a UFC fight night, a main event of a UFC fight night. I wouldn't go that far, but definitely a fight I think should be made next at 145. Then we got John Silva, ladies and gentlemen. John deserves that step up. If he wins this weekend against Melsik Baghdasaryan, it'd be 4-0 in the UFC with a win over Contender Series guy that's in the UFC now, so he'd basically be 5-0 against UFC fighters. I think that deserves him a shot inside of the top 15. Calvin will be ranked 12th, likely after the ranking update. So, number 12, fighting an unranked John Silva makes perfect sense for me in the UFC featherweight division. I think John wins, and it's just a proving one. Is John really as hyped as he should be? And Calvin, is he still UFC top 15 caliber? That's the test here at 145 pounds. Then we have Edmund Shabazian. I heard after I made this post that Armen Petrosyan and Edmund are maybe like friends or training partners. So scratch that. Let's do Edmund Shabazian versus Bruno Silva, win or lose. If Bruno beats Armen Petrosyan, let's do Edmund versus Bruno. Bruno loses to Armen Petrosyan, let's do Edmund versus Bruno. Either way, banger at 185 pounds. Dylan Putka, I've been saying this for a while. I don't think he should have even fought this weekend. I thought he should have been cut after his last performance. If you've watched my last Fights to Make Next posts, that I've made, I've had at least three cuts every single card. This card, I think there's 5. So I really, really want to start cutting guys from the UFC that aren't UFC caliber. Let's just be honest here. Let's just be honest. I think Dylan Budka should be cut. And there's going to be more. There's going to be more. But Dylan Budka should be cut from the UFC. 0-3 in the UFC. 2 knockout losses. He's 25 years old. So let's let him improve on the regional scene. Get better and, get a little bit of a win streak going there. All right, next one. Jared Gordon, Nazim Sadikov. Nazim 3-0 with 1 draw in the UFC. Jared Gordon coming off a loss. Supposed to fight Coway Fernandez. Again, if they're going to give Coway the step up to fight Jared Gordon, they should give Nazim the step up to fight Jared Gordon. It's a very fun fight at lightweight. I think Nazim deserves the step up, and Jared doesn't deserve a huge step down, and this isn't a huge step down at all against an undefeated guy in the UFC. So I like this one. Fight Night main card makes perfect sense in the lightweight division. Then we do have Ismail Bonfim, Yanal Eshmou. Similar records, 2-2 for Ismail. He's beaten and lost to better competition. Yanal has beaten more, so he's 3-1. He's got a better record, but he hasn't fought as good a competition. So let's put them against each other just to prove who is really that top 40 UFC lightweight caliber. I think they're both around that range, so it makes sense ranking-wise, and it's a good fight. They're both going to cancel out the wrestling and make for a good striking show, in my opinion. Then we got, at middleweight, on my freaking God. Don't look at any of those. Don't look at any of those. We got Andre Petroski versus Paul Craig in the middleweight division. I got Andre Petroski not fighting in the top 15. I don't think he's got 3 decisions in a row. If he had a finish, maybe a submission, a knockout in there, I might give him a top 15 shot. But 3 decisions in a row after being knocked out twice. He's got to win 1 more outside of the rankings. And I think Paul Craig is a good test and a good grappling fun fight at 185 pounds. In my opinion. Then we got, for Rodolfo Vieira, another good, fun grappling affair. Rodolfo versus Gerald Mearshart. Gerald just beat Edmund Shabazian. Very good win. Rodolfo was on a great win streak. Beat Armen Petrosian, which is a legit win. I think they're around the same rank outside of the top 15. So I like this matchup a lot as well at 185 pounds. And Paul Craig, if he loses to Petroski, I'd love to see Paul Craig versus the winner of Gerald Mearshart, Rodolfo Vieira. You can kind of do a little bit of a tournament here at 185 pounds. Then we got Jose Delgado, Josh Culibao. Josh has a losing record in the UFC. He's on a losing streak right now. Let's give him 1 more fight to test Jose Delgado. If he wins it, he stays in the UFC. If he loses, he's out of the UFC. I think Culibao should be cut if he loses 1 more, so let's test him against a very, very tough guy here in Jose Delgado. And if Jose wins, it really, really proves that he's a legit up-and-comer in the featherweight division. Because Connor Matthews, I mean, it's an okay win, but beating Josh Culibao, my fault, really proves that you are 100% UFC caliber, that you are ready for the upper echelon of the UFC featherweight division, especially if you can go out there and finish Culibao when Lerone Murphy couldn't, and other good guys have not been able to as well. So Jose versus Culibao, it's a fun one at 145 pounds. Connor Matthews, sorry to say, 0-2 in the UFC, 1-1 on the Contender series. Again, tough guy for sure. Fun fights inside of the UFC, but I don't think you're UFC caliber anymore. So back to co-main eventing and main eventing regional shows. I think that's going to be good. I mean, you're going to make some good money there as well. Have big crowds that are rooting for you on the regional scene. I just don't want to see you keep fighting on the prelims and keep getting knocked out. I don't think you're UFC caliber anymore. So Connor Matthews out of the UFC. Amanda Lemos, Yasmin Lucino, number 5, number 7. Angela Hill's like number 12 or number 13. Makes sense ranking-wise versus the loser here. Whoever loses goes down in the rankings. Angela goes up. Just makes sense. And it's a good striking match either way. Ketlin Souza, Piera Rodriguez. I want Ketlin to stay at the top. I don't want her to go way down in the rankings after losing to Angela Hill in what was a very, very close fight. So let's keep her around that top 15. Piera Rodriguez is still a fun fight. They are both, I believe, ready for the top 15. Ketlin was so close to winning. Piera hasn't got her shot just yet. So let's have them fight on the prelims of a fight night. If Piera wins, let's give her a shot inside of the top 15. And if Ketlin wins, let's give her another shot back inside of the top 15. So I like it. Then we have... All right, I gotta preface this one. Bruno Silva pulled out maybe an hour ago from his fight with Josh Van. Rafael Macapa versus the loser of Josh Van, and now Ray Soruya. Ray Soruya stepping in, undefeated Japanese prospect versus Josh Van. Win or lose there, they're going to go up in the rankings a lot. They're going to be very hyped as the young prospect of the flyweight division. The loser, though, I still want to give them a good guy in Rafael Macapa. That's a good test, but a winnable test as well. I think Josh Van beats Rafael, and I think Ray Soruya also beats Rafael. So it's a test. It's a test versus an undefeated guy. If they're able to beat Rafael, it's a good record guy to have on their resume for sure. So again, remember, Ray Soruya just stepped in. Ray Soruya. Then we got for Jesus Aguilar, 3-2 in the UFC, 2 knockouts. Was it 1 knockout, 1 submission, 1 decision? He's a fun fighter, though. He's a fun fighter. Let's not give him a grappler. Let's give him a little bit of a fun fight at flyweight. Lucas Rocha, Jesus Aguilar, prelims of a pay-per-view. Banger. What is today? February 17th. Chuck it on Mexico. Chuck it on the Mexico card. I don't think Jesus took damage. Let's do it. Let's do it. Then we got Gabriel Bonfim, 27 years old, versus 31-year-old Nursultan Ruziboyev. Nursultan is fighting over the weekend. He is taking on Eric Makaniko. I think he wins that fight. He'll be 3-1 in the UFC, 3-0 with all finishes at middleweight, with only a loss by decision to a top 10 guy in Joaquin Buckley. I think Nursultan Gabriel Bonfim, winner fights for the ranking. Winner fights of Vicente Luque. I think that makes sense, in my opinion. Then we got the loser of that fight, Chaos Williams versus Islam Dulatov. I really want to push this guy. Islam is such a fun fighter, very good striker, and Chaos has been looking a little weird lately. He hasn't been very active. His last fight, his striking was looking a little slow. He's getting chopped up with leg kicks. I think this is a winnable fight for Islam Dulatov here, so I'd like to see Islam get a big step up in competition and prove if he's a legit prospect. Let's do it at welterweight. And we got Elijah Smith, 22 years old. Let's give him that test. Every up-and-comer in the UFC kind of gets this Ricky Turcios test in the bantamweight division. He had a very, very tough fight with Vince Morales, but now I want to give him Vince Morales 2.0. Vince Morales 2.0 is Ricky. He's got even more cardio, even more pressure, even more grappling. Just a more dangerous fight than Vince Morales. Not a crazy amount better than Vince. Vince is solid. But it's a tough matchup here. Elijah. I actually don't want to see Elijah getting finishes. I love his last 2 fights. The Aaron Tao and the Contender. Vince Morales in his debut. I'd love another decision for Elijah Smith, because every decision this man goes to is an absolute banger. So 22 years old, let's give him another test to really add another feather to his cap here against Ricky Turcios. Very, very fun fight. And for the loser, gonna go out of the UFC again. I still think he's UFC caliber. I think he beats a lot of guys that are in the UFC right now. But I think he's like 3-6 or 3-7 in the UFC. His record overall isn't amazing. He's getting older as well. I think he's like 35, 36, 37, something like that. He's getting older. He's not a good record in the UFC. Fun fights for sure, but fun fights that I think should be sent to the regional scene, to main event regional cards. I think that makes perfect sense. I think it makes perfect sense. Again, he is actually UFC caliber, but the guys that he beats, I think also should be cut from the UFC. If they don't cut him, I mean, use him as another test, another test for a lot of these up-and-comers, but I think he should be cut. I do think he should be cut from the bantamweight division. And then we go on to Walter Walker. I don't want to get him a ranked fight yet. I know Dontel Mays was ranked when he fought him. He's not going to be. I think they're going to put Jonathan Deniz at top 15 instead of Walter Walker. I don't want Walter in the rankings just yet. He lost to Lucas Brzezinski like less than 2 years ago. I'd rather him fight a top 15 caliber guy. If he beats Marcos, rank him. Put him inside of the rankings. So for now, 2 wins over Dontel, losing record in the UFC. Junior Tafa, losing record in the UFC. And a loss to Lucas Brzezinski shouldn't get you ranked. shouldn't get you ranked. So let's do Walter Marcos. If he wins that one, give him a top 15 shot. Give him a top 15 shot. Dante, bye-bye. I think we should scrap a lot of the heavyweight division and bring in newer heavyweights, newer undefeated, athletic heavyweights that are outside of the UFC. I got a list of like 20 guys I'd rather see in the UFC than some of the guys that are currently in on the lower level of the top 15 at heavyweight. So, or not the top 15, the entire heavyweight division. So I think we should really remodel. They're doing it already. They're cutting a lot of heavyweights. I think they should keep doing it. Cut Dante Mays. Cut some of the really, really low-level heavyweights as well. Chris Barnett, I'm sorry. Just keep cutting, and then bring in some of these undefeated. Mario Piazon, Slim Trabelsi on the regional scene. There's a lot of guys I'd rather see get their shot in the UFC than these guys. Then we got Jacqueline versus Carol. Just a simple top 10 shot. She beat number 12, I think. Number 11 and number 10 have a fight. I think Carol's number 9, so makes sense ranking-wise for Jacqueline. And then, of course, Julia Avila retired, so she's out of the UFC. But that's what I got, ladies and gentlemen. The winners and losers, who they should fight next in the middleweight division, bantamweight, featherweight, everything. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. See you in the next one.